Welcome to Sunday Night Prime, and I'm delighted to be with you. And if you're going to get hold of me, write me an email, sundaynightprime, one word, at EWTN.com. And we're delighted. Tonight, we have a heavy-duty program. Don't walk away. It could get you into heaven or into purgatory if you leave early. This is a very, very important issue. And I want tonight to introduce my friend Chris Slattery. And Chris is the head of Expectant Mother Care, EMC. And this is an extremely important pro-life operation, not only in the New York area, but around the country. Chris, please tell our folks a little bit about your background. How did you get into this?
Well, I was a lifetime New Yorker, born in Manhattan, raised on Staten Island, and followed in my father's footsteps after college and went into advertising. I lived right near an abortion clinic. I didn't realize this. And some young people drew me into trying sidewalk counseling. And with a full suit on and a briefcase, one day I actually talked to a young mother of 15 years old who was going in for an abortion. Her mother was taking her in. I talked them out of it on the sidewalk. I had no brochures. I wrote my name on the back of a matchbook. And later on, I held that baby in my arms in the Crown Heights section of an all-black neighborhood in Brooklyn. And I realized that that young 15-year-old girl who had chosen life, she would affect the apartment, her floor, the whole building with that daring and that courage to accept heroically her motherhood. And my life was changed. After that, I decided I have got to do something to save lives. I didn't realize you could do it. And I became a pro-lifer. And I actually opened up the first pregnancy center while I was still in advertising in 1985, the first one in New York City. And we've grown now to 12 centers.
12 centers.
And we've been attacked many times over these last 26 years.
Even the courts, huh?
Many times, yes. They want to put us out of business. And it's a labor of love. Over these last 26 years, we've counseled over 110,000 girls and women.
110?
One by one.
The 110,000. How many babies do you think you've saved?
Over 40,000, Father.
Would you listen to that, folks? 40,000 children saved.
Now, this is in the abortion capital of America, mark you. In the last 40 years, we legalized abortion in New York State in 1970. We've seen over 4.3 million abortions in New York City, the abortion capital of America. And we have a rate of 41% of our pregnant women who don't miscarry abort. 60% of African-American women abort their babies in New York City. In the Bronx, where you and I spend a lot of our lives, 48% of the mothers will abort. Close to half, every other child in the Bronx, dead by abortion.
King Herod should be the patron saint of New York City right now. King Herod, who sent out to kill the Christ child and kill the holy innocents. Oh, it makes me sick. Well, now listen, folks. Pay attention, because what we're going to be talking about is not simply a nice choice of a devout, interesting religious subject. Here we're on things, we're talking about things that are going to be with us when we come before the judgment seat of God. Don't turn the dial. Now, Chris, you and your wife, Eileen, have been working on this for
over a quarter century now. And I'm a young 56 in April. And this is a lifetime vocation for many young Americans who are discerning how they can spend their lives. I wholeheartedly encourage vocations in the pro-life movement, because that's what it is.
Now, tell us what you're doing.
Well, what we do is we operate inside of doctors' offices, medical clinics, and hospitals, where we do counseling, pregnancy testing, free ultrasounds, free prenatal care. After having reached women through advertising on the subways, the New York City subways are one of the best advertising mediums you could have. We have 2 million riders a day on New York City subways and buses. And we run ads regularly with an offer of free abortion alternatives, confidential options counseling, pregnancy tests, free ultrasounds. Now, this is what the city hates, that we actually are getting the message out there that will attract girls and women that are considering an abortion, who want to verify their pregnancy with the testing and the ultrasound, who want to see for sure that they're pregnant and know how far along they are before they actually might go through an abortion. So annually, we're counseling in the centers over 6,000 girls and women in 4 of the 5 New York City boroughs. That's Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Queens. We have a special emphasis in the Bronx because of the highest rate of abortion of all the boroughs there, close to 50%. And we also operate, Father, a pro-life street-side medical van, a minibus with ultrasound on board.
Chris, we've got some nice pictures, slides. Could we see a couple of our slides? Oh, there we go. Look what we've got right here.
Now, this is a recent rally in front of City Hall, because New York City just passed and the mayor just signed a new law that's out to cripple our pro-life work in our centers and clinics. And that's me in the red coat there, and one of the Hispanic pro-life Democrats from the Bronx who championed our cause against the bill.
Who is that?
Fernando Cabrera. He's actually a minister. He's the only reverend on the council of 51 members. He's become a good ally of ours. We work together, and you can see there are priests, there are rabbis, there are ministers, and many lay people that join together in this fight. And that's in the immediate right side, you see a pastor from Newburgh, New York, not far from your Poughkeepsie House of Good Counsel homes. You see a wide base of people, interfaith and interracial, a base of support that we had Hispanics, blacks, and whites. And then on the far left there is the Mrs. Leslie Diaz, who is the wife of the state senator from New York, the Reverend Ruben Diaz, Sr., who is a long-fighting pro-family, pro-life leader in New York State Senate.
If I wish I could pick out my good friend, the rabbi.
Rabbi Levin is there behind the lady holding the sign towards the left. He's right behind the lady in that picture.
Is, yes.
Rabbi Yehuda Levin, who was very sick that day. He says he got up and he had vertigo. He couldn't stand. And he was a trooper. He got up and got out to support us there.
Orthodox rabbi.
He's an Orthodox rabbi and a fixture at the March for Life.
Oh, and I'd have to say that he brings the spirit of the prophets of Israel.
He does.
Yes.
And he and his fellow rabbis bring out that shofar, that horn, and blows that every March.
Well, now this is in front of City Hall.
Yes, and what I should get into what's happened, and there I am speaking to the media, trying to get our message across to actually swing a few votes. We got 9 votes against this bill, and the bill was called number 371A. It was basically a bill to regulate and control the crisis pregnancy centers that we run here in New York City, because they really wanted to stop our ultrasound program. Now, the mayor just signed this bill, and tomorrow, literally, we are suing New York City in federal and state court. And we are going to fight the fight to get a temporary restraining order to block this law from going into effect. That's the purpose of our filing suit tomorrow.
And I understand this is done in other cities, and you've done successfully there.
Well, we saw a bill like this where the Archbishop of Baltimore fought on behalf of some pregnancy centers that the Archdiocese was renting to, and they won. There was a 15-month long lawsuit battle that literally this January went in the favor of the Archdiocese of Baltimore, and a federal court ruled the restrictions on the pregnancy centers were unconstitutional because they were a violation of the First Amendment. A great victory. But did that stop New York City from passing this new law just like it? No. Did they care about the federal ruling? No. Does it mean an automatic win for us? No. We have to fight the fight. And it could go on for a long time. So we do need people to go to our website, SaveTheLifeCenters.com. SaveTheLifeCenters.com is where we've tracked this 5-month battle. And we'll mention it again later if you don't have a pen. But we'll get what we've done there is we've had a petition, and we've informed people with videos of all our rallies, and we'll keep people up to date on the lawsuit that we file tomorrow.
Now, I understand, of course, that there are members of the city council who are pro-life. Not very many of them. How many?
Well, we had this is a city council made up of 46 Democrats and 5 Republicans. So it's obviously a very one-sided government controlled by a liberal Irish Catholic open lesbian lady named Christine Quinn. And she's been a very aggressive proponent of abortion, and she's been leading the charge and gathering most of the votes. She got 39 votes on her side in favor of the bill. And we had 5 Republicans against it, and 4 pro-life Democrats came on our side. We certainly wanted to win over more, but there was a lot of slander and degrading of the work of the pro-life counselors. There was a whole effort to say that we were deceptive, despite the fact that we run openly truthful pro-life advertising in the subways that says free abortion alternatives, confidential counseling, free pregnancy tests, free ultrasounds, and the phone numbers and locations of the centers. And the city agencies take the advertising. If it was deceptive, they could sue us, but they choose not to because they know they'd lose the case.
Well, may I say this? When the powers of darkness are unleashed in society, they constantly lie. Don't be surprised. Satan is called the father of lies. And I think there are some Catholics watching this program tonight. And I warn them. And I warn anybody else who calls themselves an honest-to-God Christian or Jew or Muslim, that they're taking their religion seriously. They're putting, and being on the other side, put themselves into danger of losing their soul. Don't laugh when Christ speaks about the last judgment. He tells it it's going to happen. And unfortunately, often in history, people have mocked at the law of God. Look at slavery in the United States. An abominable, terrible thing. And a lot of nice Christian people, including some Catholics, went along with the whole thing and precipitated the worst war we ever had. We're going to have a break now, but folks, pay attention. Okay, we'll be back. Unfortunately, approximately 40% of babies are aborted presently in the New York City area. And probably across the country, it may be less in some rural areas, but other big cities the same. And so people say, ho-hum. They said the same thing with slavery. We had a horrible thing in this country, slavery of people arrested in Africa, brought over as slaves, and generation after generation lived in slavery. And I've worked all of my life with members of the African-American people. And only into very recent years do you no longer see the effects of slavery. It lasted long after the Civil War. It was an iniquity. It was the worst. And the United States considered itself a Christian country. There was no country in the world that had such cruel slavery as we had in the United States. And it took Lincoln, it took the Civil War to end that. And a lot of nice people went along. Now, well, you've got a lot of nice people going along with this right now. You know nice people, and I know nice people who have had abortions and who support abortion. You know, I know a lot of people who had abortions are very, very bitter and sad and sorry about the whole thing as well. Now, let's look at what the effects of the abortion culture does in this country. What does it do with actual justice and law?
Well, first of all, I mean, we've decimated over 50 million American children have been exterminated in the last 40 years. The economic impact of the loss of productive citizens of that magnitude, I think, is a big impact on our economy. It's, of course, there are a lot less school teachers and many, many other services needed when you have 50 less citizens to serve. And how many of those 50 million that have been taken would have been the great leaders, the great scientists, the great curers of cancers and other diseases that have perhaps been gone forever, lost to us? We just don't know the lost human potential of 50 million children. And in a city like New York, where we have aborted half of our population, more than half, you know, the impact is just staggering. And so, I mean, you can look at it just from the economic point of view. And then, of course, all of the hurt and the ravaging of the psychological nature of women and men that have been affected by their abortions, and how that troubles them and how that alters their relationships with their children and their families and their friends and their view of the world. I mean, you have degrees in psychology, and you know this very well, and you've studied this, and you've written about this. You know very well the psychological impact on a society and individuals from having killed their children.
It's frightening. And the thing that frightens me, which is not a surprise, is that evil becomes so commonplace that it's accepted. If you speak to any elderly German people who were soldiers or were working in the Secret Service in Germany, I talked to a couple of them. They will say to you, I only did my duty. It was murder. It was murder. At the end of the war, the Allies caught men in the German army who had papers that marked SS. They shot them on the spot. They were not even tried because if they were in SS, they were murderers. It was a murderous gang. What about this country? You know, and every once in a while, people look up and realize the horror they did with Dr. Nathanson. He looked down and he described how he saw an arm and a hand.
It was getting to know Dr. Nathanson in the late 70s, just a few years after he wrote his first book called Aborting America, where he revealed how he manipulated, lied, and completely fooled the New York State legislature with all these horrific statistics they just invented about all these deaths from illegal abortion. And when he described his part in unleashing the abortion monster in New York, I felt a special connection to him because I realized that he told the truth about how you can manipulate people, just like in Nazi Germany, how millions of Germans were manipulated into participating in an evil empire. Well, Dr. Nathanson confessed his crime of manipulation and of crowd control, if you will. And then in the actual commission of over 60,000 abortions, some which he performed himself, including on his own son. And I became his friend. And over the years, I walked in a journey with him, as did the Bells, who got to know him, Chris and Joan Bell. And I was invited to be his confirmation sponsor into the Roman Catholic Church.
Were you actually?
In 1996, I was there in the crypt chapel underneath the main altar of St. Patrick's Cathedral.
And Cardinal O'Connor.
Where Cardinal O'Connor actually baptized him and confirmed him, and he received the Holy Eucharist for the first time in one ceremony at St. Patrick's Cathedral. And that was a very, very special moment. He had a reference in his book to a moment where he and I were dragged away from an abortion clinic together in his last book called The Hand of God. And by the way, if some of the viewers don't realize it, he just passed away a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And I was at his funeral mass.
At St. Patrick's Cathedral.
At St. Patrick's, the same place where he had come into the church. He left the church. Yes. But he had this seminal moment where we were in our Operation Rescue days. This was a sit-in movement in the late 80s, early 90s, where those of us that engaged in peaceful civil disobedience sat in at abortion clinics. And he and I were dragged away from the main Planned Parenthood, the Margaret Sanger Center, side by side. He said it was a seminal moment in his life when he realized he was with hundreds of people, including Joan and Chris Bell, who were literally willing to risk arrest and go to jail to save the children.
Now here's an interesting point. I've prayed and demonstrated in front of a number of places, and the friars, we come with it. We were denounced by an article in the New York Times that monks were showing up. How terrible. Monks showed up, dangerous. But one day, the clinic didn't open, and everybody was there. The pro and the anti, we were all there, and the place was closed. And I started to talk with the people on the other side, most of them older, middle-aged women, very well dressed. And we started to talk, and they were a bit careful about talking to me, and I said, well, we have only one thing in common. What's that? I said, here it is early Saturday morning, and all of us think is an important issue. You're not having an abortion, and we're not stopping an abortion. You're out here because you think that this is a human right. And that's the answer you get. People have a right to have an abortion. They're not in favor of abortion. They're in favor of someone having an abortion. If you say we're in favor of an abortion, you know, you're a werewolf. You're in favor of killing people. But no, they're in favor of letting people have abortions. And I was talking to them. They were sincere. They weren't getting anything out of it. It was an early Saturday morning. And what was happening? Deception. Not that they were deceiving anybody. They were pro-abortion. They're not deceiving anybody. But they are the victims of deception. Mm-hmm. Satan is the deceiver. And I think of this large number of people who allow themselves, not knowingly, to be deceived. Now, perhaps some of the politicians, some of the people making money doing this, they may look into the mirror or see into the dish and realize that they're murderers. Not very many. The rest think that they're doing something good. That's deception. And that is where Satan is involved in this whole thing. It is satanic. You know, if people like to get drunk, if people carry on sexually, if people drive badly, they know they're doing something wrong. They're not deceived, they're misbehaving. But these people are deceived. Even people who have been in important government positions or in religions.
We recently got to know Abby Johnson, who headed up the Planned Parenthood in Bryan, Texas, and she was the clinic director there for over 7 years. And she was named Planned Parenthood Employee of the Year nationwide. And for a year now, she's been a pro-life activist. And I had her come to speak in Westchester County here, the first out-of-state talk that she gave a year ago. A remarkable young lady who just wrote a great book called Unplanned.
Yes,
about her life story.
Yes, I have that. But she was deceived. And by whom was she deceived? How does the whole country get deceived? How does the United States get into slavery and the land of the free and the home of the brave? How people like Jefferson, even Washington, owned slaves. Maybe they were nice to the slaves, but they were slaves. And down in Mount Vernon, the slaves,
sure,
I saw it.
Sure.
And nice people get deceived. And this is what it is, the responsibility of religion, and particularly the Jewish, Muslim, and Christian religions, because we accept the Ten Commandments, the voice of God. Thou shalt not kill, you know. And we are in terrible deception, and we may bring our country to destruction.
We can fight back.
Yes.
And it is, I think the heart of our pro-life movement is the alternative to abortion wing, which serves over 300,000 girls and women a year across America with over 2,300 pregnancy centers.
It's marvelous, but we haven't done up to 50%. We're getting better. More and more people are opposed to abortion than there has been. It's a grim fact. Now we're going to have a break, and coming back to this, there are good religious people listening to this program, Catholics, Protestants, Orthodox Jews, Muslims, what are you going to do? Well, I'm very grateful to Chris Slattery this evening for coming on what is a difficult subject. And I'm aware that people are watching us this evening, and many of them are hoping for a religiously consoling program. And that's what I generally do. That's what I'm a religious psychologist, spiritual director, and I'm here to help people, not just Catholics, but once in a while we have to take a much tougher point. Read the gospel and you see many, many times our divine Savior gives the beautiful, the consoling message, the lost sheep. But also, he can come down very strong on what is wrong. Very, very clear. Now, Chris, my audience is listening. What are things that people can do?
Well, first of all, right now, across America, a activist program that I've been involved with for as part of our ministry of outreach to girls and women in New York City, the abortion capital of America, we've been involved in the 40 Days for Life campaign. And they have a wonderful website, 40daysforlife.com, which I encourage people to go to, because in over close to 250 sites across America and in about 7 or 8 other countries, and I know your program is shown internationally. Sure. So across Europe and some in Asia and Africa, there are programs of prayer, fasting, and outreach, perfectly timed during the Lenten season, which we've just begun. This is a time where people can go out to their local abortion clinics or somewhere in their state. It may be a long drive for some people, but for some it's very close by. They can go out and pray, witness, fast, and because some of these demons can only be removed by prayer and fasting. And we have to be at these sites of the death of the children, to be there with them, even if we can't successfully reach out to the mothers, because some of these abortion clinics are set back deep in parking lots where you don't get a chance to talk to the girls and the women. But we must be there in witness to the community, that we understand there's killing going on in there.
Now, let's be practical. Someone is watching our program, they're calling up, and they find out that there is an appropriate place to go. How will they get an address? How can they get that address?
Well, at 40daysforlife.com, they have the contact information for people, phone numbers, and emails. And they often will list the location, the address, the hours. Some of them have vigil sign-up systems, links to where you can literally sign up for hours of prayer at the abortion clinics near you, so that this is easy to do. There's no minimum requirement. You can come for 1 hour period in the whole 40 days. You could come out 1 day a week. You could come out daily. Some of the programs are literally around the clock, 24/7 for 40 days and nights. So this is a big sacrifice to go outside. But for those of you that might be homebound, you can, of course, pray and sacrifice along with the tens of thousands of others that are engaging in the outdoor work. But then I also urge people to go to assist the pregnancy centers that may be near them, that are doing the day-to-day outreach. Look in your yellow pages, if you don't have the internet, under abortion alternatives in the yellow pages. Abortion alternatives tends to be the first page in your yellow page directory, and you can find pro-life centers listed there. They need help. They need support. They need booties. They need baby and mother supplies. Our pregnancy centers in New York City, we're in serious need. We're serving over 8,000 girls and women a year. And people can go to emcfrontline.org. emcfrontline.org is our website where people can make contributions. They can send us clothes. They can send us supplies. They can volunteer if they're in the New York area. And a program that we've involved people from around the world in is our pro-life intern program. We have a website for that too. It's called prolifeinterns.org. prolifeinterns.org. This site directs young people to apply to come and live with us. And we've had people from over 15 countries and over 30 states come and live with us in the Bronx, where they can engage in frontline work in this abortion capital of America.
Now here's an interesting one. A great many of the people listening to me are very active church members. They belong to their parish, their Protestant church, perhaps their synagogue. Why isn't the parish saying something? What about the parish bulletin? What about now? I know the response is that by the priest or the minister, well, I agree with you, but I don't want to upset everybody in the parish or some of the people in the parish. Maybe there's a mayor who's a Catholic who's supporting this type of thing, which is not unknown. What about it?
Well, I think one of the best ways to start with a parish or a church or a synagogue is to do some initiative that will support pregnant mothers with support, or offer hope and healing programs like Rachel's Vineyard or the New Canaan program in the New York area run through the Lumina cooperative effort with the Sisters of Life. These post-abortion healing programs are wonderful because they acknowledge that people are hurting from an abortion, and they need healing, and they need prayer, and they need mutual AA type of support groups. But the first thing is just a fundraising benefit with the baby bottles, where you collect coins and cash to support mothers in crisis pregnancy. This is a great way parishes can get started. We do this in my parish, St. Barnabas in Woodlawn in the Bronx, and we've had support from many other parishes doing this. So, reaching out with a priest, they're always going to be supportive if it's a loving approach, if it's not condemning people, if it's offering love, first and foremost. That is a great way to get started in your parish.
While you're talking, I want to mention the Sisters of Life. This is a community of religious sisters founded by Cardinal O'Connor to work for life. Mother Agnes and the maybe 75 sisters in the community over the years. I was there at the first meeting, and the sisters have a wonderful presence. If you have the opportunity, looking up your email, what do they call this?
A website. Sistersoflife.org.
Sisters of Life. And you could find some very beautiful ideas.
We work very closely with them. They have in Manhattan what they call visitation mission, 6 or 7 full-time sisters that do follow-up and in-depth social counseling and services to mothers. We send many of our clients to them. They will even establish homes and get people set up in other states. They'll get them one-way tickets to across the country to get established in a new place if they need it. They help with getting jobs, automobiles, whatever the mother needs and the father of the child needs to get on their feet, to get going in this pregnancy, to support the child after the birth, and to stick with them as long as they need. And they have maternity homes as well, as does the Good Counsel Homes, which you co-founded back in the same year that we started Expectant Mother Care.
That's
so
right.
we work very closely with the organization you co-founded and are on the board of, Good Counsel Homes.
I'm the chairman, believe it or not.
Chairman of the board. There you go.
I'm not much of a chairman, but it would say also this. There's a lot of people say I should do something, but they don't. And that starts right with some of the clergy. They totally agree what we've talked about, but they don't do anything. And that's bad.
Well, every one of us, every American citizen has the right to vote. I mean, in voting and working for pro-life candidates, whether it's dog catcher all the way up to the president, this is something that everyone should, and the church expects us to engage in politically responsible activism. Now, that doesn't mean we can preach for candidates or against candidates from our pulpits, and we shouldn't. But as individual citizens, we can work for good candidates, good pro-life candidates, and against those that are not. And unfortunately, in our Catholic community, we see too much voting for people on just economic issues or on whatever issues are your favorites, but putting life at the bottom. It has to be the first priority. And the bishops and the popes have made this crystal clear.
Oh, yes. What is also discouraging is to be aware that there are so-called Catholic educational agencies, including some universities and colleges. And on the edges of this, religious communities that don't do a thing and go in the opposite direction. I hate to say this, but there are what are called Catholic colleges that will have actually a pro-abortion thing going on, unto, you know, it's not just a big noise.
As speakers, and sometimes these anti-life speakers are invited, they're honored. Sometimes they're honored.
At Notre Dame.
And, well, at my alma mater, Boston College.
Yes.
There's been a notorious sister who was opposing, who was very much pushing Obamacare, who literally did not listen to the bishops on this issue, and she's been honored at my college, and I think that's a shame. I mean, I think she should be corrected.
For me, I've been a religious since I was 17 years old. And I went right from Catholic grammar school and high school 2 weeks later into the religious life. I grew up with sisters, wonderful sisters, Sisters of Charity, Sisters of St. Dominic, and Sisters of St. Joseph. Exemplary Christian women. Uh-huh. And I went right to the monastery 2 weeks after I graduated high school. It is inconceivable that there could be a religious, a sister, a priest, a brother, supporting in any conceivable way, taking in the most gentle way an abortion. My God, you know, it's a picture of one of the apostles killing the holy innocents. I mean, it's an abomination against God.
Well, we have so many good priests, though, and religious that are affirming life and working hard. Priests for Life, Father Frank Pavone from the New York area, living in Staten Island now, has built up Priests for Life into a absolutely wonderful pro-life organization, an exemplary. A lot of great websites there.
One of my students, Frank.
Father Frank Pavone was. Okay, well, he certainly excelled.
I was with him in the early days when things got going.
So we recommend priestforlife.org, a great resource. I think the best pro-life website in the business, literally. Pro-life websites with many, many links and educational tools and videos. If you want the best place to find activism and where to find your place in this movement, go to priestforlife.org. I use it myself frequently because it's got the tools. When everyone asks me what should I be doing or how can I educate myself on the effects of abortion on women, or they have great sample homilies for priests and deacons to use. They have bulletin announcements, you've mentioned those. They have links to many other secular pro-life groups, not necessarily just religious ones or Catholic. They work with people across the denominations. And, you know, speaking of that, I've been very encouraged, as you saw in the earlier photos that we had up, we saw a coalition, an interfaith, an interracial coalition of pro-lifers coming together. We brought in Dr. Alveda King to fight for us, who was the niece of the late Martin Luther King Jr., civil rights activist with his own national holiday, and she's a great pro-life leader now.
Yes,
and she brought in a lot of black activists to work with us. As we see, blacks have disproportionately high abortion rates across America, and especially here in New York, 60%. So I think it's essential that we open up to work with non-Catholics, to work with Jews and Muslims. Yes, even Muslims.
Muslims are absolutely opposed to abortion.
This may shock you. I had a full-time paid Muslim counselor, probably one of the first pregnancy centers in the country to do so. And I reach out to, and I have had Muslim interns and Jewish and Protestant and Catholics working together. We have to realize this is a civil rights issue first and foremost.
Yes.
Is it not?
It's a justice. It's a justice.
That's right. And you've always been terrific in outreaching to people of other faiths. I know you constantly get mail and response from non-Catholics who listen to you and respect you.
Right.
You've here in New York, you've worked with many blacks and Protestant women. I remember you telling lots of stories in the past about working with the black ladies, the Protestant ladies. We have a lot of respect for the church.
Yes.
Well, I believe a lot of these future pro-lifers are going to come out of the black community, out of the Protestant community. And we're working together. David B. Wright, the great leader who's married to a Catholic lady, is not Catholic. And he's the leader of the 40 Days for Life campaign, the most successful mass outreach of prayer and witness in our pro-life movement's history. So I'm blessed to have worked with people of cross-faith lines and interracially, too.
Now, folks, here we are into Lent. Da-da. And there's things like giving up brownies, you know, and not having a scotch and soda and once a day or something like that. Forget it. I mean, give up the brownies, that's all right. But you got to do something. And this is a work of penance. It's an inconvenience. It gets you out of the trough of ordinary life. You're people, most of you, who don't go into protesting things, but you know that you should. I remember the early days of the civil rights, and some nice people called me some nasty names. And that's so far in the past, but what we had to do. And I would say that apart from the work of the gospel, the most interesting and enjoying and meaningful thing I did in my life was civil rights. And that battle is pretty well over. And this is pro-life. That's there.
Well, this is the time. This is the time to pray, fast, and witness to life. With the 40daysforlife.com campaigns helping us on the front lines of the abortion capital of America, young people can go to prolifeinterns.org, or any age, and people from around the world can go to SaveTheLifeCenters.com, where they can get information to follow this battle, which is going to affect possibly pregnancy centers in cities and states across America, because now that they've signed and passed this bill, which we're about to sue them for tomorrow, we will literally possibly export this evil restrictions on pregnancy centers across America.
We have to end now. Again, thanks very much. I'm very, very great, Chris. And please listen in and think of the words of our Savior. I am the way, the truth, and the life. He is the life. We have asked you to please, if you can, assist EWTN as you can every week or every month. May Almighty God bless each one of us and give us the life of grace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. And may the Holy Spirit give us the courage to speak for life.